Brought to you by...
There is nothing more precious than those we hold dear. When someone steps into our lives and threatens the ones we love, all societal restrictions go out the window, and we do what is necessary to set things right. Sometimes there is no real way of fixing the trauma left in the wake of tragedy, and what starts out as revenge turns into a bloody search for justice. Hello friends, and welcome back to another Last Action review here on ETF. Today I want to introduce you to a once mild-mannered liberal, New York City architect Paul Kersey, as he snaps when intruders break into his home, murdering his wife and violently raping his daughter. A business trip to Tucson, Arizona lands him a gift from a client. A revolver he uses to patrol the streets when he returns home. Frustrated that the police cannot find the intruders, he becomes a vigilante, gunning down any criminal that crosses his path. Now, before we begin, no, we're not going to talk about the Bruce Willis garbage remake. I spoke about that in the very early days of this channel, so if you really want, I'll link that up there. Though I will warn you that the videos back then were much simpler and not really all that engaging. My viewing of this film wasn't exactly ideal. For whatever reason, the audio sync was off on this one. I was not sure if it was a technical issue with the Blu-ray copy that I have, or if it was the player I used, but it was significantly out of sync the entire time, which sort of drove me crazy, but I pushed through. Other than that, this was a beautiful Blu-ray transfer. We open with Kersey and his wife vacationing on a beach in Hollywood, getting a few glimpses of their happy life together, before everything is plunged into tragedy. The title screen is classic exploitation, with this dark musical sting. This title also always felt somewhat telling of the underlying problem with this story. The black silhouetted trees standing against the setting sun, like blackened veins. It sort of to me symbolizes the rotting growth of crime within the city. We get a very early performance from Jeff Goldblum here as one of the criminals that follow Kersey home, leading to one of the more controversial rape scenes that I have ever experienced. I don't mean in what we see specifically, but more in the tone. It feels very harsh, raw, and real. Think A Clockwork Orange. Nothing is really overemphasized or dramatized. However, they do take steps to add a few visual elements to the sequence, such as one of the criminals spray painting the woman's dresses on the crotch, small foreshadow to the horrific violence that is about to befall them. I love how, following the funeral, we start to see elements of crime surrounding Kersey. When he visits the police station, a woman is screaming about her purse being stolen. When he talks to the police, prostitutes sit in the cell behind him. At home, he witnesses punks breaking into a car outside his window. And when he leaves town for work, he is surrounded by reminders of violence in the western town. Much of this film is captured with wide-angle lenses, sort of allowing us to see the full scope of the problems within the world of the movie, though it was likely a choice made for budgetary reasons and the sake of simplicity. The basic structure of the narrative is very strong, and you can easily see where dozens of other revenge films take their inspiration from here, just in the ways that the plot plays out. They literally make Kersey's first kill a turning point. As the mugger holds him up, he turns his back on him to literally turn and fire. Once he begins to gain traction as a vigilante, it's clear that he is beginning to enjoy it. His attitude begins changing. He starts to even seemingly put himself on display in small ways, to lure in muggers. The cool things that I have always found about these movies is how they paint vigilante justice in such a revolutionary light. Like, it's very similar to watching a movie about revolution or uprising, as if it's an action that we all need to start taking. They could have easily secluded this story to Kersey and his vendetta, But they chose to make it more about standing up against crime as a whole, when the police fail to protect us. His actions begin to inspire others to fight back against criminals in their own ways. Another fun thing to look at now, looking back at this film, is the way times have changed. The police work done in the film is ridiculous. The inspector lets himself into Kersey's house without a warrant and searches the place. Not to mention the fact that many of the criminals depicted here are black, which I'm sure many today look at as racist, but they even make comments about it in the film. They do a great job of building the tension as the police begin to close in on Kersey toward the climax. We think that this is it. This is how he gets caught. Until it starts to become clear that some of the police believe that what he's doing is right. This is a gritty and controversial film that explores the psychological ramifications of violence and vigilantism. From a psychological perspective, Death Wish raises important questions about the nature of violence, the effects of trauma, and the limits of justice. One key psychological aspect of the film revolves around the concept of trauma and its impact on individuals' psyche. After the traumatic events of the home invasion, Paul Kersey experiences intense emotional distress, grief, and anger. His trauma becomes the catalyst for his transformation from a law-abiding citizen into a vigilante seeking vengeance. This shift reflects the psychological concept of breaking point, where individuals' psychological defenses are overwhelmed by traumatic experiences. We also explore the psychological allure of power that arises from the transformation into a vigilante. Kersey assumes control over the lives of the criminals. He gains a sense of empowerment and agency that was absent from his life previously. The newfound power not only allows him to seek revenge, but also gives him a sense of purpose and accomplishment. He becomes the city's protector in a way. The film raises questions about the psychological consequences of wielding such power, and the potential for it to corrupt even the most well-intentioned individuals. And we can't forget that this film introduces moral ambiguity and ethical dramas surrounding vigilantism. While Kersey's actions may be motivated by a desire for justice, his methods are outside the boundaries of the law. The film challenges the audience to grapple with their own moral compass and consider the psychological consequences of seeking justice outside of legal systems. Another element about this one that I've always thought was really interesting is that he never gets the guy that killed his wife. We never even see them again. This makes the story not so much about personal vendetta, but about standing up against the violence of society and fighting back with sheer brutality. Not that this is the way it should be done in real life, but it makes for a really good story.